Arthur Blank just had the most explosive meltdown any NFL owner has had in years, and according to sources who witnessed it firsthand, Blank absolutely destroyed Kevin Stefanski in a private meeting that turned into a screaming match after a shocking leak revealed that Stefanski has been secretly sabotaging the Atlanta Falcons draft strategy by feeding false information to Terry Fontenot about quarterback prospects while simultaneously helping other teams by giving them accurate evaluations that contradict what he's telling Atlanta. According to sources with direct knowledge of what happened, Blank called Stefanski into his office on Sunday morning, March 1, 2026, showed him evidence that Stefanski has been acting as a double agent, essentially working against the Falcons' interests, and then unleashed a tirade so intense that people in adjacent offices could hear Blank screaming about betrayal, fraud, and how Stefanski is a snake who never should have been allowed in this building. And according to sources, by the end of the meeting, Stefanski was forced to completely back down, to admit that he'd been giving the Falcons bad information, to agree to immediate termination of his consulting contract with zero payout, and to sign a document promising never to work in the NFL again or face massive legal consequences. The leak that exposed all of this came from inside the Falcons organization and appears to have been orchestrated by someone who wanted Stefanski gone. And now the Falcons' entire draft strategy is in chaos because they don't know which of Stefanski's evaluations were honest and which were sabotage. The shocking leak that triggered Arthur Blank's explosion happened on Saturday evening, February 29, 2026, when an anonymous email was sent to Arthur Blank, Terry Fontenot, and several other senior Falcons executives containing detailed documentation of Kevin Stefanski's alleged double-dealing and sabotage. According to sources who've seen the email and its attachments, the leak included phone records showing calls between Stefanski and representatives of other NFL teams, text message screenshots where Stefanski discussed giving the Falcons bad intel on certain prospects, and most damaging, according to sources, audio recordings of Stefanski telling someone that he was deliberately steering Atlanta away from Fernando Mendoza because he wanted Mendoza to fall to another team that had offered Stefanski a future employment opportunity if he helped them land specific players. According to sources familiar with how the leak was discovered and how it spread through the Falcons organization, Arthur Blank was at his home on Saturday evening when he received the email on his personal device. According to sources, Blank immediately called Terry Fontenot and told him to come to Blank's house immediately to review the materials together. According to sources who've been briefed on what happened during that meeting between Blank and Fontenot, both men were shocked and enraged by what the leak revealed about Stefanski's conduct, and they spent several hours on Saturday night reviewing every evaluation and recommendation Stefanski had made to the Falcons to try to determine which ones were legitimate and which ones were potentially sabotage.
The specific allegations against Kevin Stefanski that emerged from the leaked materials are extensive and deeply damaging, according to sources who've reviewed them in detail. According to sources, the first major allegation is that Stefanski told the Falcons that Fernando Mendoza has significant character concerns and work ethic issues that make him a risky draft pick, while simultaneously telling other teams that Mendoza is the best quarterback prospect in this draft class and that any team that gets him will have their franchise quarterback for a decade. According to sources, the leaked text messages show Stefanski explaining to someone, allegedly a contact at another NFL team, that he was pushing Atlanta away from Mendoza so that Mendoza would still be available when that other team picked. The second major allegation, according to sources, is that Stefanski gave the Falcons extremely positive evaluations of several defensive prospects, who he privately told other teams were overrated and not worth first-round picks. According to sources, the implication of this alleged pattern is that Stefanski was trying to get the Falcons to waste their draft picks on inferior players, while steering better players to other organizations. According to sources, if these allegations are accurate, Stefanski's conduct would constitute one of the most egregious violations of professional ethics in NFL history, essentially amounting to corporate espionage or fraud perpetrated against his own employer.
The third major allegation, according to sources, involves Stefanski's role in the alleged Jordan Love trade discussions between the Falcons and other teams. According to sources familiar with the leaked materials, there are communications suggesting that Stefanski was secretly communicating with the Green Bay Packers about the Falcons' interest in Love and about Atlanta's willingness to trade draft picks, information that Stefanski should not have been sharing with Green Bay and that potentially compromised Atlanta's negotiating position. According to sources, if Green Bay knew exactly how interested Atlanta was and exactly what they were willing to pay, it would have made it impossible for Terry Fontenot to negotiate effectively. The identity of the person who leaked all of this information about Kevin Stefanski remains unknown according to sources who've been investigating, but according to sources, there are several theories about who might have been behind it and what their motivations were. According to sources, one leading theory is that the leak came from someone in the Falcons' scouting department who became suspicious of Stefanski's evaluations, did their own investigation, and decided to expose him when they confirmed their suspicions. According to sources, another theory is that the leak came from one of the other teams that Stefanski was secretly helping, possibly someone who got cold feet about the arrangement and decided to blow the whistle. And according to sources, a third theory is that the leak came from someone connected to Deion Sanders, who wanted revenge against Stefanski for his role in the negative evaluations of Shedeur. The meeting between Arthur Blank and Kevin Stefanski that resulted in Stefanski being forced to back down happened on Sunday morning, March 1, 2026, at approximately 9 a.m., according to sources familiar with the timeline. According to sources, Blank called Stefanski on Saturday night after reviewing the leaked materials and told him to come to Blank's office at the Falcons facility first thing Sunday morning for an urgent discussion about your consulting work. According to sources, Stefanski arrived not knowing exactly what the meeting was about, but suspecting it might be related to the audio leak scandal involving Shedeur Sanders, rather than anything specifically about his Falcons work.
When Stefanski entered Blank's office, according to sources who've been briefed on what happened, Terry Fontenot was also present, along with the Falcons' general counsel. According to sources, Blank didn't waste time with pleasantries and immediately confronted Stefanski with printouts of the leaked materials, asking him to explain why he'd been giving the Falcons false information while helping other teams. And according to sources, Stefanski's initial response was to deny everything and to claim that the leaked materials were fabricated or taken out of context. But according to sources, Arthur Blank was not in any mood to accept denials or excuses. According to sources who've heard accounts from people who were in the building that morning, Blank's voice could be heard through his office door as he screamed at Stefanski about betrayal, about ethics, about integrity, and about how Stefanski had disgraced himself and disgraced this organization. According to sources, Blank specifically told Stefanski something to the effect of, "You came into this building pretending to help us, pretending to use your expertise for our benefit, while the entire time you were sabotaging us to help other teams. That's not just unethical, that's potentially illegal, and you're going to pay consequences." The Falcons' general counsel then apparently took over the conversation, according to sources, presenting Stefanski with a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. According to sources, the attorney told Stefanski that he could either agree to immediately terminate his consulting contract with the Falcons with zero remaining compensation, sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement preventing him from discussing his work with Atlanta, sign a document admitting to professional misconduct and agreeing never to seek employment with any NFL team in the future, and cooperate fully with any investigations the Falcons or the league might conduct, or alternatively, the Falcons would file civil lawsuits against Stefanski for fraud, breach of contract, and breach of fiduciary duty, would file complaints with the NFL seeking lifetime banishment, and would refer the matter to law enforcement for potential criminal investigation. According to sources familiar with what happened next, Kevin Stefanski completely backed down when confronted with those options. According to sources, Stefanski's lawyer, who was participating via phone, advised him not to sign anything without more time to review, but Stefanski apparently decided that his position was so indefensible that fighting would only make things worse. According to sources, Stefanski signed all of the documents the Falcons presented, agreed to leave the building immediately and never return, and left Blank's office looking, according to one source who saw him, like a man who just had his entire career end in 30 minutes. The immediate aftermath of Kevin Stefanski's forced termination and his agreement never to work in the NFL again has been chaos for the Atlanta Falcons draft preparation, according to sources familiar with the organization's internal discussions. According to sources, Terry Fontenot and the scouting staff have spent the entire day Sunday reviewing every evaluation, every recommendation, and every bit of analysis that Stefanski provided during his time as a consultant to try to determine what can be trusted and what needs to be completely disregarded. According to sources, this process is incredibly difficult because Stefanski was involved in evaluation discussions for months, and his input influenced Atlanta's draft board in ways that are hard to disentangle now. The specific impact on the Falcons' quarterback evaluation is particularly significant, according to sources. According to sources, Stefanski had been one of the strongest voices pushing the Falcons away from Fernando Mendoza and toward other options. And now that the Falcons know Stefanski was allegedly sabotaging them, they have to completely reconsider their quarterback board. According to sources, Kerry Fontenot is now scrambling to do additional evaluation work on Mendoza, including arranging last-minute private workouts and interviews, because if Stefanski was deliberately steering them away from Mendoza, it might mean Mendoza is actually the best option, and Atlanta was being manipulated into passing on him. The legal implications of Kevin Stefanski's conduct, assuming the allegations are true, are substantial, according to sources who've consulted with attorneys about the situation. According to sources, Stefanski's alleged behavior could potentially violate multiple laws and contractual obligations, including breach of fiduciary duty to his employer, fraud through misrepresentation, interference with business relationships if he was helping competitors, and potentially even criminal statutes related to fraud or theft, depending on how prosecutors viewed his conduct. According to sources, the agreement Stefanski signed to avoid litigation and criminal referral is probably his best outcome, given how bad the evidence appears to be against him.
The NFL League Office's reaction to learning about the Stefanski situation has been concern and investigation, according to sources familiar with league operations. According to sources, league officials have reached out to the Falcons to get more information about what Stefanski allegedly did and to determine whether any league rules or policies were violated. According to sources, while the league doesn't typically get involved in disputes between teams and their consultants, the allegation that Stefanski was essentially acting as a spy or saboteur for other teams while pretending to work for Atlanta could fall under conduct detrimental to the league if proven. The other NFL teams that Stefanski allegedly helped by giving them information or by steering the Falcons away from certain prospects are now in potentially awkward positions, according to sources who've spoken with executives at various organizations. According to sources, if it becomes public which teams Stefanski was secretly helping, those teams could face questions about whether they knew about Stefanski's arrangement with the Falcons and whether they should have reported his unethical conduct rather than benefiting from it. According to sources, at least one team has proactively reached out to the league office to disclose that Stefanski provided them with unsolicited information about the Falcons' draft plans and that they didn't ask for or encourage that information. The Cleveland Browns' reaction to learning about Kevin Stefanski's alleged sabotage of the Falcons has been a mix of vindication and concern, according to sources within the organization. According to sources, Browns personnel feel vindicated because Stefanski's pattern of unethical behavior at Atlanta confirms their belief that he was also engaging in unethical behavior when he was criticizing Shedeur Sanders and spreading negative information. But according to sources, there's also concern because if Stefanski was willing to sabotage the Falcons, it raises questions about whether he sabotaged the Browns during his time there or provided bad information to Cleveland's competitors. The impact on Kevin Stefanski's personal and professional life from being forced to agree never to work in the NFL again is devastating, according to sources who know him. According to sources, Stefanski has spent his entire adult life in football, and his identity is completely wrapped up in being a coach and evaluator. According to sources, being forced out of the NFL entirely and being required to sign documents admitting misconduct essentially ends any possibility of him coaching at any level, because even college programs would be reluctant to hire someone with that kind of ethical cloud. According to sources, Stefanski is reportedly considering whether to fight the agreement he signed or whether to honor it, with his attorneys telling him that fighting would likely result in everything becoming public and his reputation being destroyed even more completely. As of now, Sunday evening, March 1st, 2026, Arthur Blank has successfully forced Kevin Stefanski to back down, to admit wrongdoing, and to agree never to work in the NFL again, after a shocking leak revealed Stefanski's alleged sabotage of the Falcons' draft strategy. The Falcons are now scrambling to repair the damage to their draft preparation, trying to figure out which of Stefanski's evaluations were honest and which were deliberate misinformation. And Kevin Stefanski's NFL career appears to be over, ended not by performance issues, but by ethical misconduct that made him toxic to every organization that might have considered employing him. The shocking leak that triggered all of this came from someone with extremely sensitive information, and that person's identity and motivations remain one of the biggest mysteries in this entire scandal. What's clear is that Arthur Blank's explosion and Stefanski's forced exit represent yet another dramatic chapter in the most chaotic pre-draft period in recent NFL history. Arthur Blank forced Kevin Stefanski to immediately resign and agree to never work in NFL again after a shocking leak revealed Stefanski sabotaged the Falcons by steering them away from Fernando Mendoza while secretly helping other teams. Blank's screaming meltdown was heard throughout the building. Stefanski signed documents admitting misconduct to avoid lawsuits and criminal referral. The Falcons' draft strategy is in chaos as they try to figure out which evaluations were sabotage. Stefanski's career is over.